Hello, this is international football commentator Derek Ray, and you're listening to the Ranks FC podcast.
Hello, Ranks Squad, and welcome to Champions League Takeaway here on Ranks FC. It's your favourite transatlantic football podcast, and what a night of Champions League action we have to talk about. 42 goals across 9 games in the competition. It was chaotic. It was raining goals at one point in the second half. So we're going to break it all down for you. My name's Jack Collins, and I'll be your host today. And joining me across the water, all the way from San Diego, is Mr. Dean Jones. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm okay, mate. We needed a little time, didn't we, to get our heads around this one. I mean, we never give ourselves too long because we like to do instant reactions, but normally we're jumping on within like 10, 15 minutes of the game's ending. But tonight we're, half hour? So we've got a little bit longer because we need to make sure we were up to speed with what we'd just seen. And I mean, I've only really got to focus on 2 games. You've got to watch however many else there were in the night. And I don't know how you've done that, to be honest, because I struggled with 2.
It was a chaotic evening. There were a lot of screens going on. And normally, you get a couple of games, you're like, okay, that one's sort of by the by. And when I sat down earlier to watch the 2 early kickoffs, I was like, these are 2 really interesting games. They've been really intriguing across, both of them. They might end up a little bit higher up the pecking order today than perhaps they normally would do. No chance. Not a chance. And look, I could spend half an hour here talking to you about how good Sporting were against Club Brugge. I thought they were absolutely outrageous. I thought that it was one of the best team performances I've seen from Sporting in a long time. And yet they're going to come into this order at like 7th. So that's how good a night of Champions League action it was. And so many big storylines for us to get across. We're going to start, though, in North London at the Emirates, where Arsenal have taken control of the Champions League table with a 3-1 win over Bayern Munich, meaning they're the only team left perfect in the competition after 5 match weeks. You were across this one, and what a performance from Arsenal. They have swept aside Bayern in this one. 2, are they now the best team in Europe for the time being?
They're top of the Champions League, mate, and they're top of the Premier League. So the facts are there for right now. Arsenal are the team to beat. And it's been a wonderful week. They've seen off their North London rivals, Tottenham, at the weekend. And they've seen off an old foe too, because Harry Kane came to the Emirates and they left him extremely disappointed. Harry Kane was talking before this game about how he feels the Premier League's become less entertaining because of the focus on set pieces. Well, Arsenal just made sure to rub his face in the misery because they scored from 1 to go 1-0 up in this game. And look, it was a really difficult game for long periods because these 2 sides definitely respected each other. I always felt that Arsenal had a certain amount of command, but they certainly respected each other, and rightly so, because look, they had a reason to believe they were both the best team in Europe coming into this game. And this was a huge test for Arsenal. But they've come through it. You're like, a main rival in this Champions League has been seen off. And now at the weekend, they're going to go off and see their main rival in the Premier League because they got Chelsea. So you're talking about monumental weeks to see off your North London rivals, to go and beat Harry Kane's Bayern Munich. And then if they can also see off Chelsea, who are second in the Premier League, then that's one hell of a week for Mikel Arteta. And of course, as we sit here right now, Arsenal are the only side with a 100% record in the Champions League. Top of the league, 5 wins out of 5. So good that the Arsenal fans were singing to Bayern Munich, "Are you Tottenham in disguise?" So yeah, I mean, this is a fun time to be an Arsenal fan, and we've come a long way from those days of him having the handbrake on. Just a really important and convincing win, to be honest, mate. Like, I don't mean convincing in the fact that Bayern themselves couldn't have turned this game in their favour. But even when Bayern Munich come back into the game, there was a sense of ease within the Emirates, which I think was really important from a supporter perspective, but also from a player perspective. And look, like I mentioned, Arsenal take the lead through a set piece. It's Jurrien Timber from a Saka corner, and Timber hangs in the air and manages to steer it in. It's a great goal. But then Bayern score a well-worked goal as well. And I do believe that this was probably pre-planned, because the way in which they scored it was impressive, and it looked like they'd planned it. It was a diagonal ball out from the back, but Gnabry was already on his way. He was already on his way down the flank before that ball was played, and it was like he knew what they had to do to get him behind. And as the ball goes over the top, it falls to him first time, sticks it into the middle, and Carl takes care of business and just sticks it away first time. A lovely finish.
Fun fact. Lennart Carl, the second youngest player to score in consecutive Champions League appearances, behind Lamine Yamal. So Lamine Yamal did it at 17 years and 270 days old. Lennart Carl's done it at 17 years and 277 days old. So not much between them, a literal week. But it was a really, really composed finish from a very, very special young player.
Yeah, it was a composed finish indeed. But I tell you what, for all the things that were good about Arsenal, Miles Lewis-Skelly might not have been one of them. He had a difficult time. And I mean, which is only fair. I mean, considering that the players you're coming up against are Serge Gnabry and Michael Olise. And Olise obviously on top of the world at the moment in terms of the way that he's been playing.
It's reasonable to be a little bit unstuck against those kind of players, I think.
By the way, I still always have this thing where I want to say Lewis Miles Skelly, and it really bugs me because every time I write a story about him, I'm worried hours later that I've written it the wrong way around and I sound like an absolute donut.
There are certain names, like when I say Lamine Yamal and then I shorten it, I often say Lamal. It's just one of those
There's so
things.
many names in football. It's amazing how many names our brains have in them of footballers, and every now and then there's one that trips you up. And Lewis Skelly is definitely one of my ones. So he does scare me in that sense. But Bayern certainly weren't scared of him. What was telling me was that they took Lewis Skelly off on 68 minutes and replaced him with Calafiori. At the same time, they took off Saka and replaced him with Martinelli. And look, it turned out to be a good switch. Earlier on in the game, Trossard had come off injured and Madueke had come on for Arsenal. What happens within 1 minute of the substitution? Arsenal get a breakaway and Calafiori is like, bang, I'm having some of this. He makes like an inside left run, keeps going. The ball slotted through to him. He steers it across goal. And there's Noni Madueke to score his first goal for Arsenal at the far post. He was smiling, honestly, for about 5 minutes afterwards as well. Like, it was such a big moment for him.
It was, I think, one of those things that Mikel Arteta will have absolutely loved, because not only does he bring Calafiori on, but because Martinelli's come on for Saka, Madueke's switched sides as well, because he's gone from the left to the right. So not only is it the left back that marauds forward that puts in the cross, but that switch of sides has meant that it is Madueke that pops up at the back post. It's like one of those things that you could only dream of, I imagine, as a manager, where an immediate switch, makes the difference within seconds. It was Calafiori's cross was basically his first touch, and suddenly you're 2-1 up, and the game swung in your favor again. Just one of those moments you're like, wow, everything is falling Mikel Arteta's way at the moment. And look, there deserves due credit for going and making that switch, taking Saka off at 1-1. Is bold, right? And I know that obviously there's one eye on the Chelsea game at the weekend and the Premier League, and making sure that is he's fit and firing for that one, because that's a huge game domestically. But still, to take him off at 65 minutes is a huge gamble when you're looking for a winner, and instead your substitution has paid off within seconds. That is the stuff you dream of, I think, as a manager.
And we mustn't forget that this is an Arsenal team without Havertz, without Jesus, and without Gyökeres. Like, they're three main goal scorers that you would expect at the start of a season, if they were available, aren't available to them. So they weren't out there for this game. And Arsenal had chances. Look, Marino, who obviously plays centre forward a lot of time when those guys aren't around, did spurn a couple of chances. Declan Rice had come close as well with a charging run that was well saved by Neuer. But it was important, once they had the control, that they didn't let it go. Unfortunately, they were handed a helping hand, because Neuer, he's out of his goal already, which goalkeepers often do. They come halfway between.
And Neuer in particular.
Halfway line. Neuer spends half of his life standing in that position anyway. But as Arsenal go on a counter, the sweeper keeper turns into basically midfielder or centre-back. I don't know what he thought he was at that moment, but he comes hurtling towards the ball rather than backpedaling towards his penalty box, and he just gets it all wrong. So Eze passes the ball forward and Martinelli darts in behind, fresh legs, like the last person that Bayern Munich wanted to see in that position of the field. And he gets in behind and it's game over. He rolls it into the back of the net. And that's it, mate. There was no way that Bayern Munich would have come back from that moment. Obviously, Arsenal have the best defence in the world. It takes a lot to breach them once. You certainly ain't going to do it 3 times at the Emirates. Game done, game dusted. Arsenal are currently the best team in Europe.
Yeah, I mean, look, I want to give a bit of credit. That Eze ball is so spot on over the top. It is such a gorgeous knock because he gets the moment, where it's been cleared in the edge of his box. He looks up and he plays this curling pass. Now, any ball there that's too long is swept up by Manuel Neuer. And he sees Gabriel Martinelli playing through. And look, the kind of, I suppose the natural thing you see at that point is someone just like lobbing it almost for someone to go chasing after, especially when they might get through. But Neuer's in such a specialized position there that the dink has to be nigh on perfect for Martinelli to get to it. Now, does he get a little bit lucky in that it sort of bounces off his knee and goes past, Neuer? Yeah, a little bit. But it's only possible because of the weight of pass. Just feel like something that Eze isn't going to get enough credit for actually what is an unbelievable assist because Martinelli still has a long way to go when he gets the ball. But actually, the weight on the pass is what makes the entire goal possible. And look, that's 4 goals in 4 Champions League appearances now for Gabriel Martinelli this season, which is very, very impressive in its own right. And he's really making a knack of coming off the bench and making those things happen. Arteta deserves credit here as well for the way he's managing this squad because it doesn't feel like certain players are getting, their knickers in a twist, shall we say, for, having to come off the bench. They're coming on with a point to prove and to try and, push the game in their favour. There's been a show of trust in those players. And that's what you see from him coming on for Saka, right? The captain on the night. In those kind of moments, you're like, go on then, go and win us this game. The starters and finishers thing is working for Arteta. This was just I thought, a really good performance. They swept Bayern aside, especially in that second half, where it really did feel like Arsenal just went through the gears a little bit. And to put that kind of performance on a team that have been so good this season in Bayern, I was incredibly impressed with Arsenal.
Mate, I mean, the question is, like, can they not only just win a trophy this season, but can they win both of them? Like, This is going to become a narrative. It has to become because they're doing this with a depleted squad. Obviously, for the second half of the season, they're going to have these players becoming available again. I mean, one of Arteta's toughest jobs now is going to be to make sure he keeps everybody happy and keeps everyone with enough minutes. I mean, now you're seeing Odegaard coming back into action. He got 10 minutes today. He doesn't want to be kicking his heels on the bench, but obviously he's got to win his place back in the team and wait for an opportunity. You're going to have Gyökeres and stuff coming back in soon. See, Gabriel is out at the moment too, like the player of the season. He's going to be back next month. There's so much here for Arsenal to believe in. There's obviously been questions about this team's mentality, but they've learned season after season under Arteta, and they've got better and better with every lesson that they've learned. And this is where it all comes together. This has to be. There can be no more lessons to learn. They've learned them all. And now they've got to put it all together, show that they are the full package, and we'll have to see whether anyone can combat them. Is it Chelsea on Saturday? Can they lean upon the traditions that they've got, the heritage, can they cause doubt in Arsenal's mind and pull off a result that throws the Premier League title race wide open? Is it going to be PSG that actually go head-to-head with Arsenal for the Champions League once it all closes in? Do Bayern Munich come back into the equation? Can Inter or Real Madrid push themselves back into the conversation? I don't know. But obviously, as we sit here right now and record, Arsenal are setting the way and they should be favourites to win the Premier League. And I think they should be favourites to win the Champions League now as well.
So at this point last season, I just had a little look. On Wednesday, the 27th of November, 2024, right? Liverpool were top of the Champions League table, had played 5, won 5, 15 points. They were the only team, who had a 100% record. they were top of the Premier League table at that point. And I'm pretty sure that the discussion all around, and it wasn't necessarily something that Liverpool fans bought into, but the discussion kind of around them generally was, can they win a quadruple? Now, that maybe felt a little bit, strong at the time. And obviously it didn't play out that way. But that was the conversation that was being had. And so to not have a similar conversation about Arsenal at this point, who have won 5 from 5 in the Champions League, who are clear at the top of the Premier League table, who remain in all the competitions, I think it would be disingenuous to not raise it as a point in the same way that we did last season.
It was nonsense then, and it's nonsense now. I mean, Arsenal aren't going to win the quadruple. I don't want to go as far as that. And I don't think it. I mean, you're right. Like it's the same comparison. The thing is that you're talking about a club in Liverpool that have shown historically that they've had the capabilities to go and win multiple trophies in a season. And at the moment, Arsenal just need one. Like, let's just get one up and going. If they get 2, it's unbelievable, especially if it's these 2. I mean, if I'm completely honest, mate, I've got a feeling that Crystal Palace actually knocked them out of the Carabao Cup. Like, I've just got this sneaky feeling that it's the sort of thing that Glasner goes there and does, and that Arsenal would kind of just be have this moment that's kind of unexpected, but ultimately doesn't really matter, but counts as a wake up call. Like, part of me kind of sees something like that coming.
And look, if you're going to get knocked out of one of these competitions at this point, or move from contention, that's the one they would pick, right? Like, so it's not necessarily the be all and end all in terms of that. But I just thought it was worth bringing up, considering I just had a real thought. I was like, hang on, pretty sure after 5 match weeks last year, that was the moment that Liverpool went clear at the top of the Champions League table, which is a position they held all the way through. So, just an interesting comparison in that regard. Talking of Liverpool, let's come on to them, because another chastening night, shall we say, for Arne Slot and his men at Anfield. Another defeat by 3 goals. They lost 4-1 to PSV Eindhoven. Now, PSV have a little bit of form for hammering champions in the Champions League. They went a couple of weeks back and beat Napoli 6-2 in that game that, kind of really threw the cat amongst the pigeons. And PSV are going really well. I think it's now 12 games unbeaten for them under Peter Bosz. They've kind of extended their lead at the top of the Eredivisie. So I was looking at this game and saying, this isn't as easy, I don't think, as anyone was putting on paper. But I'm sure Liverpool fans would have just really liked this to be calm and controlled. I'd written this at half time, right, when it was 1-1. But it was a really genuinely good game to watch as a neutral in the first half, I thought. It was end-to-end. It was exciting. It was one of those games that had so much going on, in terms of the chaotic nature of it. But it's 2 clean sheets in 15 games for Liverpool. And this one, the 15th of that run, they lost a clean sheet within minutes. I have absolutely no idea on this good earth what Van Dijk is doing for this penalty. And he spends ages complaining about it. Now, there is a bit of hustle and bustle in the penalty area, and I think he's claiming for a push. But his hand is just up in the air above his head. I don't think he can have any legs to stand on in terms of complaining. And the referee accepted the fact that he was like, okay, I'll have a look at it. And then immediately gave the penalty because it was a penalty. And
Van
even Perisic
complain. Never.
I know.
VVD, normally, very, very dumb. That's what this was, Jack.
This was, that was exactly what this was. Very good. Very, very good. I mean, look, it's wild. Perisic sticks away the penalty, and 3 goals conceded now in 3 games in a row for Liverpool, 3 or more, which is not great vibes. But look, let's kind of talk about it from a genuine standpoint and work through the game. But because Liverpool actually looked really good after they went 1-0 behind. And I think that's to their credit, considering that in recent games, after going behind, they've sort of collapsed in on themselves. They scrapped their way back into this one. Their equaliser came from a good challenge in the middle. Ball worked out to Cody Gakpo, who cut in and shot. But Szoboszlai on the rebound to tuck it away. PSV did get the ball in the back of the net a few minutes later from a free kick, but Saibari was offside. But again, I think concerns over the set-piece defending. And I did think that Liverpool should have had a penalty at 1-1 with the challenge on Ekitike, but it weirdly didn't really seem to be checked or reviewed. It looked like there was contact in the box from where I was standing on this one. I thought it was probably a penalty, and it was very quickly cleared if it was checked at all. The right back situation was interesting here, Dean, because Jones and Szoboszlai rotated in the position, depending on the interchanges in possession. I thought in the first half, it looked like really clever stuff. Van Dijk hit the bar from a corner in a sustained period of pressure, and it felt like they were suddenly really growing into a game that had immediately threatened collapse. A brilliant save from Kovar to deny Ekitike and stop Liverpool taking a lead into the break around the 40th minute mark as well. And yet after the break, at the start of the game, they collapsed, and after the break, they collapsed in on themselves once again. The right-back interchange, which looked so good in the first half, nearly cost them immediately because Curtis Jones played this dreadful crossfield ball across his own box that put them under the cosh. And PSV should have scored, but they messed it up. They didn't mess up the next chance. They tore Liverpool open in transition. Great cross from Maros Junior, met by Goose Till, who poked it home. It was lovely movement from Ismail Saibari, dragged Van Dijk away and allowed Till to nip in front of Kirkez and finish it off. And from there, it kind of just went from bad to worse. Liverpool turned up the chaos style, as they tend to do when games threatening to get away from them, and it opened the game off. And Ekitike goes off with an injury. Isak comes on, again, incredibly anonymous in terms of what he was doing, but equally not loads of service for him either. Konate drops another clanger to add to the ever-growing list. He miskicks the ball from what looked like a really relatively routine clearance, allows Ricardo Pepi to run in behind. His shot leads to Driouche scoring the third and basically killing the tie. And if you thought that was as low as it could go, PSV added that fourth, which really did kind of put the salt in the wound with seconds remaining. They raced away on the break. Serginho Dest down that right-hand side, pulling the ball back for Driouche to add a second goal. But again, it's a complete collapse from Liverpool. Now, I think if you watch the 90 minutes and you'd taken the goals out of it, you wouldn't say that this was a dreadful performance. And I don't know if that makes it better or worse. If I'm being
take the goals out of it and it was fine.
No, but
it's just the four mistakes that lead to the goals that aren't good enough.
Sure, but what I'm saying is that, I think in the Forest game at the weekend, I watched Liverpool and was like, wow, that was incredibly bad. After they conceded the first goal, it didn't really look like Liverpool had any ideas. That wasn't necessarily the case here. I thought that actually they kind of played some nice football. They were competitive. They were able to turn up that chaos style and actually stretch the game out. And sometimes I think when things are going badly, you just do need to kind of be like, we're just going to go for it. We're going to go for the jugular, try and get them. But instead, they get caught. And it just feels like everything is going that way for Liverpool at the moment. And I don't quite know how they fix it. I don't think Arne Slot knows exactly what's going wrong and therefore how to fix it. And maybe the thing that's getting worse and worse. We spoke on Monday when we were doing, various bits about Liverpool and what this looked like. And one of the things I kind of made from it was it felt like there was a bit of a snap on the weekend against Forest in that, fans walked away from the game. They left a little bit early. It wasn't, one of those things where it was like, I'm just done with this. I just don't need this today. And I think that when you're looking at it from a Liverpool perspective, there is now a sense, I think, of frustration that Arne Slot doesn't look any closer to fixing the situation than he did 3-4 weeks ago. And that's when things can really start to spiral out of control, I think.
Yeah, mate. I mean, I haven't watched the whole game, obviously, but I'm kind of analysing the moments that have led to their downfall here. Goal number 2, so it's 1-1. The ease at which Mauro Junior goes past Mo Salah, who makes absolutely no effort at all to then chase him back, is truly pathetic. Salah he deserves so much criticism at the moment. I think Carragher might have been laying into him again today, judging by what I've just quickly seen popping up on my phone, and he's obviously on the CBS coverage. It doesn't surprise me that he would be in meltdown after something like this. And obviously he hasn't been happy with Salah anyway since the contract. But this goal, Salah is so lazy in the way that he goes back after him. And then the ball that goes towards the far post, another player that just hasn't stepped up enough since joining Liverpool, Kirkez, not tracking his runner inside it, just doesn't seem to be, doesn't seem to be good enough. So Kirkez and Salah between them are at fault on goal 2. And then on goal 3, the Konate miskick is more than, it's like, why do they even want Konate to sign a new contract? What do they see? How good must this bloke be in training? Because in games, nobody's seeing it. He's been awful this season. And Szoboszlai, so the ball, Szoboszlai's there's a bit of a mess in the middle of that area of the field It's about 4 players around it. The Szoboszlai is one of them. And the ball gets hooked forward, but it's going towards his centre-back, who is wanted by Real Madrid, right? And he's like...
Nominally. He was at the start of the season anyway.
He was at the start of this game anyway. And he missed it. And Szoboszlai, his reaction tells you everything. He's just like... He's had enough. Szoboszlai's carried this team this season, and his reaction in that moment is just like FFS, you know? It's like, what is going on? What is going on? Because in that moment, when they then go on and score from that, it's dead. And then, of course, like goal 4 then comes right at the end of the game. And again, the attitude of the team is appalling. Like, I know the game's already dead at this stage, but they lose the ball
back
up.
is absolutely
There
dreadful.
Yeah.
And bear in mind, that's Serginho Dest. It's the right back from PSV who's bombed the entire length of the pitch to set it up. That's desire. That's want.
Obviously, for PSV, this is one of the games of their life, right? So, like, they've got an opportunity to kill Liverpool off. So that's not a huge surprise. But if you are in a mess like Liverpool are in, you at least need everyone putting their bodies on the line, giving it absolutely everything. And from Van Dijk, the Van Dijk moment through to this very last moment in the game, it wasn't there, at least in these key moments of the games. And so that's a huge problem. Look, on the Patreon, we have had some of our Liverpool fans across this season questioning Van Dijk's leadership, and I've usually stuck up for him. Like, I don't always love the way that Van Dijk blames people and points fingers, but for everything I've heard, he has always been a good leader and a good captain. But I'm struggling now. I am, like, with every defeat that passes by, I am struggling. And part of the reason for that is that good leaders stand up in times of crisis, right? And I just feel that he's just not doing that. He's just not doing it. He's getting worse. Like, obviously everyone talks about Salah getting worse since he signed his contract. Well, so has Van Dijk. So this is a really...
Not to the same visible degree, I don't think.
Not to the same visible degree. It can't be... Like, Salah's hiding, which is worse, right? Salah might as well not be out there this season because he's done nothing, and he's hiding. Like, when my 7-year-old son plays football and he doesn't fancy it because there's a bigger kid or the other team's a bit better, he'll hide, right? And that's what Salah's doing. Who's like one of the most highly played footballers in the world, and that is completely unacceptable. I don't really like it with my 7-year-old. I'm not having it with Mo Salah. And so that's a huge, huge problem. And the other thing is that it all comes back on Arne Slot, and the question, you know, it's going to be like Slot out and all this stuff. And like, we're not going to completely defend him, of course, because like he's the manager and he took the plaudits for the Premier League title. So he will now take, you know, the responsibility of the defeat. But, oh, look, we know how bad things are. Ange Postecoglou's been linked with his job today. I mean, that's how bad things are getting for Arne Slot. Like, a bloke who was sacked 6 months ago from Tottenham, or not even 6 months ago, and then a month ago by Nottingham Forest, is now being talked about as taking Arne Slot's job. And I'll be honest, I don't think it's genuinely got that bad that that's going to happen.
No, I'd be very, very surprised if Ange Postecoglou walks in at Liverpool.
I think they'll stick by him. I think that Liverpool will stick by him. That's been what's intimated anyway through, I guess, informal briefings. Let's say is that
he's been dealt a tough hand this season in some ways, right? Like, and look, again, you know, we talk about this all the time, but no one can kind of caveat for the loss of Diogo Jota and what that's done to the club generally. But equally, and to take it just onto football matters, something I kind of alluded to earlier. He's got to look like he's starting to find solutions. And if anything, it feels like it's getting worse rather than getting better. And that, I think, is the major problem for Arne Slot right now.
Yeah. I mean, this is such a big defeat. Like, I don't just mean like 4-1. I mean, in terms of like, I really, really didn't expect them to lose this one. Some of the other ones haven't surprised me recently. Like, obviously, I didn't expect them to lose 3-0 to Nottingham Forest, but if you'd have told me that Forest went there and beat them 2-1 or something, I wouldn't have been that surprised given the way things were going. I wouldn't have been that surprised to learn that they lose 3-0 to Man City, given the way that things have been going. But now, suddenly, they'll go to West Ham at the weekend with what should be a bounce-back game. I don't know anymore. This is a side that is 12th in the Premier League and it's going to be the worst defence of a Premier League title that we've ever seen. And they're also 13th.
Take a while to be, the Chelsea and Leicester ones that really did go down the pan.
Mate, this is on form, on track to statistically be. And there's no reason to believe, with so many games left, that it won't happen. Like, I think it will be. At this rate, I think it will be. And also, are they going to go out the Champions League? Are they going to get knocked out? They're now 13th. They got 9 points in the bag, right? They're not going to make those top. They're not going to make that top 8.
No,
they're not going to make that top 8. And so, how do they react in this moment? Because their next game is Inter Milan away. They ain't winning that. They're not going. If they can't win
current form, yeah.
Then they got to go to Marseille. All right, Marseille are bang up for that one already. And then Karabag. I was going to say at least they'll win the last game against Karabag, but who knows?
Karabag have been good.
So honestly, they might only have, say, 4 more points to come in the Champions League, which
that'll be enough. 13
probably enough, but still is not great, is it?
I mean, the question is, are they going to get 4 more points? And then look, as in by the 21st of January when they play Marseille, this could be a very different looking Liverpool side, right? Like, and I think that is always worth putting in there. But I think you're probably right on the Inter one.
In terms of like the transfer market, or in terms of?
Well, I don't know. Like, it's a month and a half away.
In terms of the form, you mean? Sorry, yeah.
Like, we might be looking. Things might have worked out. Like, to be honest, if things haven't worked out by the 21st of January, if this period goes on in the same way that the recent results have, Arne Slot won't be in charge by the time that they play Marseille. Right?
It depends how bad they let things get, doesn't it? Because all the briefings
if they lose 4 of their next 5, then he won't be in charge by Christmas.
I don't know. I'm told he will. This is what's weird. I am told that he will, because they don't want to be seen as like giving up on him, and also like they're grateful for what he did last season.
I mean, that would then be one. If they lost 4 of their next 5, that would be 1 win in 8.
Yeah. No, I'm not. That'd
be
saying
7 losses in 8. I don't know if you can survive that kind of form. I don't know if you'd survive that kind of form, no matter who you were, the manager of.
Well, Ten Hag did,
Liverpool.
Didn't he? Ten Hag did.
Well, that's true.
It's the luck of the Dutch. You write things out.
Perhaps. I don't know. But it's just worth bearing in mind that it might look very different by the time they play Marseille and Karabag.
Equally, obviously, we talk about Postecoglou there. Who else? Nagelsmann, I guess people will say, something like that.
Not before a World Cup, though. He's not going to walk away from the Germany job before the World Cup.
I was in one of my WhatsApp groups earlier. It was like, well, Nagelsmann needs to come in. I was like, he ain't going to come now, is he? That's not happening. I don't know, man. I don't know, but they're in big trouble, man. Big trouble.
They are indeed. Right, we're going to take a break then. We come back talking about Tottenham Hotspur's visit to PSG in the Super Cup rerun, and also a crackerjack between Olympiacos and Real Madrid in Piraeus. Make sure you stick with us here on Ranks FC. Welcome back to Champions League Takeaway here on Ranks FC. We're headed over to Paris to see how Tottenham Hotspur got on against Paris Saint-Germain in that rerun of the UEFA Super Cup final that took place in August. At that moment, Thomas Frank felt like God's gift to Tottenham Hotspur with a really, really impressive performance. They haven't got quite the same result. It wasn't a draw after 90 minutes, although the loss is similar in some ways. But Spurs, after a chastening loss in the North London derby, Dean, gave a relatively good account of themselves, I thought, in Paris, even in a 5-3 loss to reigning champions PSG.
Yeah, let me just get the stats out the way first in terms of the way that this went, because I keep losing track of it because of the 8 goals. Tottenham took the lead through Richarlison, but within 10 minutes, just before half-time, Vitinha scored a great goal to make it 1-1. They come out after the break, and Kolo Muani puts Tottenham 2-1 up. against his own club. Don't forget, he's actually a PSG player.
Always enjoyable. The kind of the revenge of the ex is such a brilliant storyline that continues to be a
so
thing
funny because he's not actually even an ex. He's like genuinely like he's still considered like part of the. Didn't Mbappe get him in? Wasn't it like Mbappe was like, I want more young French players to come and join me at PSG. So Kylian Mbappé went over there. Now he's scoring against him while he's on loan at Tottenham. Anyway, 2-1, Kylian Mbappé. They can only hold on for 3 minutes before Vitinha scores. Then, another 6 minutes later, Fabian Ruiz scores. Then William Pacho scores on 65 minutes to make it 4-2. So, within 15 minutes of Tottenham going 2-1 up, they're 4-2 down. Then, Kylian Mbappé scores on 73 minutes to give them some hope. But then again, within 3 minutes, it's all over because Vitinha scores from the penalty spot. Right, so there's all the complications of it. It was a bit of a seesaw game. But the one thing is that even when Tottenham started to get themselves back in it or even had control of it, it was gone within a matter of minutes. And that was the problem. Look, let's look at the positives first. At least they weren't boring, right? Thomas Frank at least set about fixing that. So anyone that thinks that like this guy is unwilling to attack, well, he will attack. And actually there were periods of this game when he deserves some credit for the way that they went about this. It was a little bit Ange Postecoglou, obviously, in the fact that they've gone and scored 3 goals at PSG, but they've still conceded 5. So, like, there's that side of their character that still needs fixing.
Thomas Frank hated the Nuno comparisons. He's absolutely had it off. He's like, right, I'll show you what I can do.
The worrying aspect for me was that they were just a bit too passive at times and they were sitting off the ball. And when you've got Vitinha pulling the strings, it's just extremely dangerous. Vitinha was awesome. He got a hat-trick here. His first goal's beautiful. His second one is kind of a wondrous finish. But again,
I've got to say, we got this amazing piece of commentary here in the UK on this one, where it was 1-0 to Spurs, and the corner's just being taken that leads to the Vitinha goal. And as the corner's being taken, Glenn Hoddle, who was on the commentary, he's obviously a Spurs legend, was like, PSG are just taking shots from distance, and Spurs will be quite happy with that. As Vitinha screams one into the top corner. It was like the most unbelievably perfect bit of commentary I've heard in a long, long time. Really, genuinely quite funny. And look, credit to Glenn Hoddle. Obviously, was an incredible player in his day and loves those kind of goals. Was straight on be like, well, that's just absolutely unbelievable. You got to just stand up and clap in those kind of goals. So, like,
and it's right,
completely
though,
fair play to him.
But
it was funny.
On, because they were limiting them to that. And they were... I personally think they were playing too deep, especially at 2-1 up. Like on the second goal that Vitinha scores, Tottenham are dropping so far back. Like they're inside their box before they need to be. And PSG have got loads of space to figure out how they're going to get it. And it falls to Vitinha, and he's just like, well, I'll just cut aside and stick this one away.
They don't get out to Vitinha fast enough. Like the fact is that Romero is charging past Richarlison as the shot is being taken, which is just not good enough, I'm afraid.
Yeah, exactly. So look, it did have comparisons for sure to the Super Cup. Obviously, that one, Tottenham had a 2-0 lead going into the late stages. And while it wasn't exactly like that, they did have the lead and they did have the chance to take command, and ultimately they always let it go. And that's going to be a trait that follows this team around. You know, as the old saying, Tottenham get battered everywhere they go. And unfortunately, like, this does look like a battering. It's a game when they've gone and they should be able to come out with some credibility for actually having a go and having a good game with the European champions. At the end of the day, they've conceded 5 goals. PSG get a late red card as well. Lucas Hernandez elbows Xabi Simons in the side of the face.
Really dumb.
Really, really unnecessary. It was a bit much.
Completely unnecessary.
But ultimately,
silly.
Yeah. And, you know, there's the moment when Fabian Ruiz scores and Tottenham are caught trying to play it out the back and it just doesn't work out. So there's all sorts of moments here. You know, Tottenham, At one moment, they're too passive because they're not getting to the ball. And then when they have got the ball, they're overplaying in the areas that are too dangerous against PSG. And these are the moments they've got to learn from. These are the moments that they have to sign better players to manage, maybe. So there's all layers of stuff to go on here. Ultimately, it's obviously a better defeat than the one that they suffered at the weekend. It's not as bad as I think as some Tottenham fans would have feared that this might have been. So I do think that despite the scoreline, they've restored some pride, and the fact that they have gone to PSG and scored 3 goals, and in some ways they have deserved those 3 goals, I think is a positive that Thomas Frank needs to take into a domestic spell of games that on paper seem capable of giving them a platform to turn things around now.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're 3 good goals, I think, the Spurs score. And you know what? I thought the setup was quite smart, actually. It went back to a 4 at the back, Archie Gray moving into midfield. At times in the first half when they were under the cosh, he dropped into the back line. But him and Bentancur in the middle, Bergvall played sort of like nominally as a left midfield. It was sort of a 4-2-2-2 with Pape Matar Sarr kind of tilting towards the front line, and then Colin Wani and Richarlison together up top. I thought it worked quite nicely, actually, at times. And Spurs were able to put themselves in a position where there were people able to carry the ball. Bergvall and Pape Matar Sarr, I thought, did that very, very well, and were able to get at PSG in certain areas. Obviously, 2 goals for Colin Wani, who I think kind of on balance from the season thus far has been the best of the options through the middle, although he hadn't had the goals to kind of back it up. He scored 2 here against his parent club, which is, well, 1, quite amusing, but 2, I think will be kind of a welcome boost for him. And the way that he lashes in both of his goals I think is something that Spurs fans can hang on to. Richarlison scoring the first one after really good work from Archie Gray to burst beyond and stand the ball up. Colin Wani heads it back across from Richarlison, heads it home. It's one of those games where you come up against Vitinha. He scores 2 glorious goals and a penalty. He also gives the ball away for the Spurs goal, but it comes from a good press and a kind of snappiness to the Spurs press that wasn't there at all at the weekend. I think there are positives to take, but equally, it's still a kind of one of those where Spurs have now lost in the North London derby, lost to PSG, albeit in a game where they gave a better account of themselves. That game against Fulham on Saturday night feels huge for Thomas Frank, because if that becomes 3 losses in a row, that starts to look very, very uncomfortable. However, if they play like this, and I say this, as a Fulham fan, like if they play like this, I would be surprised if that's how it, plays out. So maybe he has found a sort of a situation in the system that is starting to get the best out of certain players in different ways.
Yeah, I mean, it is a really bad period. Obviously, they lost to Newcastle 2-0 to go out of the Carabao Cup. Then they lost to Chelsea 1-0 in the league. They did have a convincing win over Copenhagen in the Champions League. But then it's really crumbled since Man United got that late goal through Matthias de Ligt. When Tottenham thought they'd beaten Man United 2-1 when Richarlison scored that late goal. They should have seen that game out. De Ligt scores late on. It's 2-2 Man United. And then since then, Arsenal 4, Tottenham 1, Paris Saint-Germain 5, Tottenham 3. That's why, these Fulham, Newcastle, Brentford games for Tottenham now that they come into really do feel important. Again, I don't think that Thomas Frank's job is on the line here. I genuinely don't. I think that they want to back him in the transfer market and they want to give him time to see through his philosophy. Like, as Frank said himself, on the weekend, Arsenal was 6 years into a plan. I'm 4 months. He's right. He's right. This isn't just his fault, and he's got to learn as well and grow on this stage. But obviously, you've got to pick up some wins, and in this next 3-game spell, there's got to be some signs of life.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's it. Signs of life from Spurs, but ultimately still a defeat, and one of those that they can look back at and be like, okay, performance improved, but we've got to see results start to tick up on the pitch as well now. Let's go over to Piraeus. Olympiacos 3, Real Madrid 4. In a wild game, topsy-turvy. If you thought that the Spurs game was wild, this one was mental in a very, very different way. And look, after all the drama with the Vinicius contract and the noise, it felt like Real Madrid and Xabi Alonso in particular just really needed a win. And they got it in a bit of a strange way. They go behind here, and Real Madrid have a really weirdly bad record in Greece, especially against Olympiacos. And when they go 1-0 down early doors, you're a bit like, oh God, this could spiral out of control. Beautiful goal from Chiquinho for the opener. A crunching tackle in midfield, then this lovely interplay between Daniel Podence, Chiquinho and El Kaabi, and Chiquinho rifles it home, near post from the edge of the box. One of the best goals you'll see across the entirety of the Champions League today, I thought. But Real Madrid grew into it, and they turned the game on its head in this incredible 3-minute spell. First one comes from this through ball. Vinicius Jr. on the left-hand side of the pitch gets his head up and plays this unbelievable dink in behind, sets Mbappe away. He doesn't miss those. He fires home. The second's well worked down the right. Trent slides in Arda Güler, stands it up for Mbappe to head in the second. And it takes him all of 5 extra minutes to complete the hat-trick, running off the back again, meets a perfect Camavinga through ball and starts that one home. 6 minutes 42 for the hat-trick, the second fastest in Champions League history. Remember what the fastest is, Dean?
No, go on.
Mohamed Salah against Rangers off the bench.
Yeah.
Which is, that's the first one. But Mbappe, 6 minutes 42. And at that point, Real Madrid felt like they started to go through the gears. Vinicius Jr. has the ball in the back of the net for a fourth, but it was correctly ruled out. Tchouaméni curls one against the bar after Arda Güler really should have scored, and he tries to set up Mbappe instead. And then Vinny lifts one over the keeper when he's through, also just narrowly over the bar. And they looked really good in this period. Olympiacos absolutely on the ropes, 3-1 down. But the halftime team talk seemed to spur them back into it. And they pulled one back through Mehdi Taremi after a really good cross from Santiago Hetza. It turns out that Real Madrid didn't really appreciate being poked. So they roared back again. And it was Vinicius Jr. At the heart of it once more, wriggling free to send the ball across from Mbappe to hit home his fourth. 22 goals in 18 games this season for Kylian Mbappe, and 9 in 5 games in the Champions League this season, which is pretty unbelievable numbers by anyone's standards. Look, fair play to Olympiacos. They kept battling. They pulled one back. El Kaabi tucked one home to make it 4-3, and they did come close to equalising late on, but Real Madrid held on to win it 4-3. So a good win for Xabi Alonso, a much needed win for Xabi Alonso. And I thought it was interesting to see if he'd sub Vinicius Jr., because that's been part of the drama around all of this. He did, but in the 90th minute. So I'm not 100% sure. I think that might be a bit more okay than subbing him in say, the 70th. To be honest, I thought Vinicius was really, really good tonight. I thought he played really well. I thought that the combinations with Mbappe started to feel like they were linking up again. The two of them celebrating after the 2 goals they combined for was nice to see. And in a week where all of the noise has been around Vinicius Jr. and Xabi Alonso and their relationship, for him to go out and put a performance like this on the pitch, I think might just calm it down a little bit under Real Madrid. But a much needed win for Xabi Alonso, a much needed win for Real Madrid. And even though it was a bit chaotic and probably a bit closer than they would have liked, especially when they were 3-1 up, everyone could just breathe a little bit, I think, around the Bernabeu.
Yeah, look, Mbappe on top now, top goal scorer in the Champions League, I think, for this season.
Only because Osimhen took the week off.
That's true. But for him, like, that will mean a lot. He's looking electric at the moment. I don't just mean because of the electric blue kit that he's playing in, which I absolutely love, by the way.
Really nice.
It's very, very smart. But yeah, I saw a few stats around it, and it's just like, this is the sort of stats that you're expecting Mbappe to constantly put up. Like with Haaland, you see every few weeks, like he's setting new records and stuff like that. But yeah, Mbappe, the first Real Madrid player to score 4 goals in a European away match, now scored more hat-tricks away from home than any other player in the European Cup or Champions League. Only the 3rd player to score a hat-trick within 29 minutes of a Champions League game. All these sorts of things. This is what Mbappe should be doing all the time. Like, this is what he was hyped up for. This is why he joined Real Madrid. And this is what we want to see. Real Madrid's next Champions League game, of course, Manchester City. So we'll see, because it'll be the goal machines going head-to-head, Mbappe and Erling Haaland.
Yeah, I mean, an exciting one for everyone. Look, it just felt like one of those games where Real Madrid needed the big guns to fire. And whilst Mbappe gets all of the goals, the 2 assists for Vinicius, I think, are a big moment. Another one for the Arda Güler Mbappe connection as well, I think is something to be pleased about from Xabi Alonso's perspective. And actually, I thought that Fede Valverde on the right-hand side with Trent coming up on the double outside him worked quite nicely. I wasn't quite sure what the shape was going to look like when I saw the team sheet, but actually I thought it worked quite nicely. And actually Real Madrid, while still a little bit susceptible, I think, to box defending. They still don't feel completely comfortable in those areas.
Yeah.
From an attacking perspective, I thought they looked really good and actually probably could and should have maybe scored more than 4, which is always a good sign.
My concern is that already I'm seeing people saying this is proof that they're better without Bellingham. And it's almost the same discussion that's being echoed from the England squad, where people are saying England will be better without Bellingham. Bellingham missed this game with a slight discomfort. And it doesn't help him when things like this happen. You know? Like, what do you think about what is going to happen here with Bellingham? Like, because people are genuinely starting to believe, not that Bellingham's a bad player, but the unbalances both teams that he plays in.
Well, I think it's interesting that Thomas Tuchel said that you can't play Kane, Bellingham and Foden all together. And I'm starting to get a little bit of an inkling that Xabi Alonso isn't 100% sure he can play all 3 of Vinicius, Bellingham and Kylian Mbappe all together. Now, I think the smartest coaches in the world probably work that out, right? But Real Madrid for so long has been a battle of the biggest names to get on the sheet, right? To get on the team sheet. And Carlo Ancelotti's solution was just like, let them work it out. Xabi Alonso is never going to be that guy, right? Like, he wants to have a system, he wants to have a structure. And if you have 3 players in there who do these, you know, who all want to be in the attacking third and making things happen and providing the magic, there is, you know, some things you have to work out and nitpick within that. Now, I think Xabi Alonso will work that out. I think he's an incredibly smart cookie. And whilst there is, you know, concerns about him from some parts of the Madrid fan base, I trust that if he's given the time to actually fix this and work it through, then he will do so. But equally, things like the Athletic report that Vinicius Jr. won't sign a new contract until he's kind of worked it out with Xabi Alonso, or, you know, until their relationship is in a better place, I don't think particularly help his cause. And, you know, whilst I think that to say that Jude Bellingham being left out of almost any squad is nonsense, it makes the squad better is nonsense. Like, I do think you have to find a balance. And look, maybe that is asking Bellingham to do something slightly different, right? Like, Dani Ceballos comes on for Camavinga here. You know, is Xabi Alonso going to be the manager that's like, okay, Jude, we think you're brilliant. We know you can do lots of different things, but actually we want you to be a bit more disciplined in the middle of the park and be a number 8 rather than a number 10. Now, you can argue about whether that gets the best out of him or not. But if you're trying to get all of these names into the same team sheet, you have to find, you know, a little bit of balance in the structure. Yeah, and maybe you do have to be a bit more disciplined in terms of what you're asking a player to do in those situations.
Yeah, so he comes on for the last half hour and he replaces Goulet. Like, it's funny that he comes on 1 minute after Real Madrid have gone 4-2 up. So like Bellingham comes on like at a point when it looks like they're in command and he thinks, right, I'll take Goulet out, and Bellingham does come in. And obviously they go on to concede a goal. But I don't know, maybe Arda Goulet gives him something that he just trusts in a different way to Bellingham. I mean, I don't know. It's definitely going to be a thing that becomes a talking point.
There's the Goulet-Mbappe connection that I talked about earlier, right? Like, no one's provided more assists to the big man than Arda Goulet over the course of the season. I think he likes the way that Goulet drops into the middle and can pull the strings in a kind of Luka Modric-y kind of way, which is something that Bellingham, I'm sure, could do, but that's not really what his natural game is. He likes to drive with the ball and open things up. I think last year, actually, if you look at what Bellingham did for Real Madrid, he was more disciplined in terms of the role he was being asked to play, and he did play in a deeper role. Maybe it's, you know, on Alonso as much as anyone else to be like, right, okay, I'm trying to work out a space for you in the system, but we know how much he loves Tchouaméni. You know, we've seen Camavinga and why he likes to have Camavinga kind of drifting off that right-hand side, because it allows for the switch ball to the other side, which is something that tore Barcelona apart in the Clásico a couple of weeks ago. Goulet seems to be one of the players that Xabi Alonso wants to build this team around. Like, you have to make sure that you're undroppable and that your performances continually stay up to scratch, because that's what the competition in a squad like Real Madrid should be. That if your performances fall off or there's an injury and someone comes into your slot, you have to earn your spot back through cameo performances and all of those elements. That's a sign, I think, of a healthy squad. And the question becomes, you know, at what point is Real Madrid's squad about the names on the team sheet as opposed to the way that the combined 11 play together? That's always a question that hangs over the Bernabeu. And it's not particularly, you know, I'm not saying anything new here, but I do find it interesting that, you know, it's that Florentino Perez is always going to back his players over the manager, right? Because he knows where the value is within the squad. So, you know, ultimately Xabi Alonso has to find a solution, or he's going to be the one out on his ass. So that's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, true. I mean, I'm sure some of the headlines around Xabi Alonso are overblown right now, but there's definitely something going on there. And one of the biggest jobs when you're in charge of Real Madrid is trying to keep everybody happy, and it seems it's mission impossible. So you've at least got to keep most of them happy and make sure you're picking the right ones every week.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, managing the dressing room might be the most difficult part of that kind of job. So we will see. Right, we're going to take a little break there. When we come back, going to wrap up everything else that went down on a mad night of Champions League action. Stick with us here on Ranks FC.
Welcome back to Ranks FC. It's that time of the week when Jack whizzes around Europe and keeps us in touch with everything else that we all missed.
A lot of fun in these games. None of them had less than 3 goals in them. So we're going to have to try and be relatively quick as how we do this. I can start at the Metropolitano, Atletico Madrid 2, Inter 1. I was really excited about this game, team. And it turned out to be the real battle of intensity that maybe you could have predicted before kickoff. Like, when we do these kind of plans, I'm like, which games are going to go in the top bit when we talk about them in a bit more depth and which are going to end up in the rundown? This was originally in the top bit. This was a game that I thought might end up being one that we discuss in a bit more detail. But, it wasn't quite as dramatic, perhaps. It had a dramatic ending, but not in terms of the way that the game played out. Atleti took a relatively early lead after a VAR check. Their goal was originally ruled out for a handball from Alex Baena in the build-up after a Simeone cross into the box, the son, not the manager. Julian Alvarez hammered the ball home as it bobbled down, and the check found that correctly it hit Baena's chest rather than his hand, so the goal was given. And Atleti had the best, I thought, of the first 25 minutes, but then Inter started to really grow into it. The 10-15 minutes before half-time, they really started to put their own mark on the game, carving out a few openings before the break and then again afterwards. Barella hit the bar with this lovely dink over the keeper at the start of the second half before Inter finally found the equaliser that they deserved, I thought, through Zielinski. He powered home after a really nice 1-2 with Anjoan Boni. And at that point, it looked like the Nerazzurri were the more likely winners, potentially continuing their perfect record in the competition. But there's a reason that Atleti have such a brilliant home record, and it's because they will battle to the end of any given game. And with about 10 minutes to go, they were the ones that took the game by the scruff of the neck, and they got their just reward for that in injury time, for that positivity with a late winner, Jose Maria Jimenez thundering home a header from a Griezmann corner, and the celebration absolutely unbelievably charged as well to give them all 3 points. Lovely stat here. 12 wins out of 13 games at home in the Champions League for Atletico Madrid. Like, outrageous form at the Metropolitano. And it takes a lot to go there and beat them. And again, they are proving that whilst they might not be, the best team in the world this season, and whilst they feel a fair bit still back off the pace in La Liga, and their away form has been a cause for concern, you just do not want to come up against them at the Metropolitano. And a big win for them here in a game that, Diego Simeone was calling the Diego Simeone derby. He was like, I'd like to manage Inter one day. I was like, all right, mate. You've got a pretty cushy job there as the most highly paid manager in world football at Atleti. So
funny,
it's all just cool our jets. But a good win for Atletico Madrid. A frustrating one for Inter because actually they felt like they had the game ready to be able to take on, and at 1-1 they just kind of dialed off the pace a little bit, and it just felt like a bit of a strange one. They've been good without being great, I think, at any given point under Christian Chivu, and that's something that might come towards the end of the season, but I'm not particularly worried about them either. They haven't quite caught fire. Talking of teams who've caught fire, Atalanta going away to Eintracht Frankfurt and winning 3-0. Now, I thought this was an absolute banker for goals. The most entertaining team in Europe against the team that used to be the most entertaining team in Europe. It took a little while to get going. My big takeaway from it was that Atalanta already look a lot better under Palladino. I thought that against Napoli at the weekend, they were undone by a few moments of kind of individual madness. But they looked like they had a bit more of a structure again. And here, they were the better team from pretty much minute one. Ademola Lookman scored the opener after good work from Shalda Ketelara to lift the ball to him at the back post. He'd already hit the post in the first half, as did Scamacca, although I thought the Lookman's one was more impressive. And at that point, Atalanta just went into overdrive. Eintracht immediately tried to force their way into the game, and the second one came very soon afterwards, Lookman racing away and squaring for Ederson to finish. 93 seconds between the two first goals. And it was only 3 minutes after that they got the third and killed the tie. Again, they broke down that left-hand side. The ball fell in the box to Scamacca. He hit the crossbar, but Charles de Ketelaere there to tidy up. And seeing de Ketelaere and Lookman behind Scamacca in a front three, I was like, yeah, okay, we're going to start to see this again. And, seeing the fullbacks getting on and getting into the box and making things happen. It's a Zappacosta cross that ends up with the third goal after Scamacca hits the bar. To be honest, as good as Atalanta were, I was really disappointed by Eintracht. They've been a delight to watch in the Bundesliga, but they just couldn't find the gears at all at home. And it very much was a well-deserved win for Atalanta. Fingers crossed that this is the start of things starting to go in the right direction now again under Palladino.
Yeah, definitely. As you say, slightly surprising outcome in the end in terms of the actual scoreline, but nonetheless, an entertaining game. Atalanta are 10th now, so they are on the same points as Manchester City. So that puts them nicely poised. In fact, it takes them all the way up to 6th. Borussia Dortmund are also on 10 points, up in 6th, along with Chelsea as well. So, a little pack there, right on the brink of those automatic places and the playoffs ones.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that the Champions League form was basically the only thing keeping Juric in a job for a while. And even after that 1-0 win over Marseille, which was a very, very chaotic ending that we spoke a little while back, I thought that would keep him a little bit longer in the job. It turned out not to. I think they've made the right decision on that one. But Atalanta, good. And I enjoyed it very much. And Lookman's celebration full of heart as well under a new manager. So that'll endear him to his new coach.
Yeah, I'm going to say, one of the reasons Juric probably got rid of was because of the argument he had with Lookman. Was it the last Champions League game or the one before? Either way.
Yeah, it was the Marseille game.
Yeah, so it was pretty high profile and it wasn't a good look. And Lookman seemed pretty bewildered by it all. So I want to see him playing with personality and happiness because that's when you'll get the best version of him. And Atalanta want to see it too because otherwise he's going to leave because he'll definitely have offers. So yeah, good to see that.
Yeah, really, really nice. Let's go to Lisbon. Sporting 3, Club Brugge 0. Unbelievable performance this, I thought, from Sporting. They got a little bit away with one at the start, not necessarily because it was wrong, but Morten Hjulmand was given a red card for a high boot in a tackle very, very early in the game. But it was sent to VAR and actually correctly reverted to a yellow card. He is high, but he touches the ball first, kicks the ball away, and then withdraws his leg and comes clattering into a player sort of, with his leg withdrawn. So I think a yellow card was the right decision. Good work from the referee because it would have been very easy to just kind of let that one go in the end. And then Sporting just went on the charge. Really, really good work in the build up to the goal. Jenny Katamo scorching down the right. His shot rebounded back to Giovanni Kenda. He's the first player who scored tonight, who is signing for Chelsea next summer. He will not be the last, but Kenda tucking it away on the pivot was a nice finish. And Katamo was integral to the second goal as well, turned really nicely in the middle and released Luis Suarez, not that one, to beautifully lift it over the keeper. Really good stuff from Sporting. A little dink over the keeper, amongst my favourite type of finishes as well. And look, both first half goals were worked out so nicely from the back. I tweeted about this. I absolutely love watching the way that Sporting sweep across the pitch when they're feeling themselves. Inacio, excellent as ever in that regard. But the way that they go from back to front, Sporting, is they're such an exciting side to watch when they're doing their thing. And Club Brugge had absolutely no answers for them in this one. They were in complete control in the second half. They allowed Brugge to have the ball, but they barely created a chance. There was a lot of shots from distance that didn't bother the goalkeeper. And Sporting added a lovely third with about 20 minutes to play and moved the ball really nicely from right to left through Hidemasi Morita. He slips in Kenda and pulls it back for Trincao to curl it into the far corner. Icing on the cake from a really good performance all round from Sporting. So a good week for them. Good week for the Portuguese teams because Benfica won at Ajax as well. And maybe Porto can back that one up in the Europa League on Thursday. Two more, the early kickoffs. Pafos 2, Monaco 2. Pafos left it late, but an own goal salvaging a 2-2 draw against Monaco. And actually, Pafos were good here, I thought. They came from behind twice. Monaco looking for back-to-back away wins in the Champions League. It does mean that both teams have only won one of their 5 games to date, but Pafos have now won 1, drawn 3, lost 1. of their their inaugural
Mad,
Champions
isn't it?
League campaign.
I
That was a
know.
really, really good start, and they deserve major credit. Look, Monaco really took the initiative early on in this one. Akliusha forced the keeper into an early save, and it was him again in the 5th minute. He threads it through to Takumi Minamino, who finishes really neatly from just outside the 6-yard box. And you're thinking, oh, is this going to be one where Monaco can just actually hit all of the gears? You can see what Pocognoli's trying to do with this team, I think, a little bit more now, even if they had a bad result at the weekend. The red card, I think, accounted for a lot of that one. But Pafos kind of sprang back to life. They hit the crossbar through Anderson Silva, and then about the 20th minute mark, they scored what I think is a Champions League heritage goal. Mislav Orsic whipping in a corner kick. David Luiz rising highest to thump one into the top corner of the net. Brilliant header from him. And the celebrations were excellent, as you might imagine, with David Luiz. But Pafos kind of shot themselves in the foot before half time. Pafos keeper just passed the ball out straight to Flo Balogun, who was like, thanks very much, took one touch and volleyed it into the corner. So Monaco went in at the break with a 2-1 advantage. But second half, Monaco just didn't really click in the same way, I didn't think. Akliusha, who was really, really influential in the first half, wasn't able to impact the game in the same way. And Pafos started to pile on the pressure, and you saw it coming. And look, just as it looked like Monaco had done enough, they had some mad defending with like throwing bodies in front of the ball to kind of block it. But Ivan Sunic's header from a second chance corner also just flipped one in, and it had come back to him. Flipped it in again. Sunic's header came back off the crossbar, hit poor old Mohamed Salisu on the neck and went into the back of the net. And to be honest, I think on the balance of the game, no more than Pafos deserved. I thought they were well worth the point. So it was good from them.
Good on them.
They've been really, really impressive, and they deserve credit in the same way that I've been, high on my credit for Qarabag, in my praise for Qarabag. I think that you can actually look at this Pafos side and say they've come up with some really impressive moments. They create really well. They defend hard. And when they're not doing their best to shoot themselves, they are genuinely a very, very good side. So yeah, shouts out to them. And then finally in Copenhagen, the hosts won 3-2 against Kairat Almaty. It was, again, a bit of an odd game. Copenhagen were 3-0 up and absolutely cruising. And Victor Daderson was on target again, the 17-year-old Icelandic striker. He scored a kind of header from very, very close range after Robert Silva's shot was steered into his path. But it was another one. He became the 3rd youngest player in Champions League history to score a goal when he scored in the 4-2 defeat by Borussia Dortmund. But nice to see him on the score sheet again, and nice to see the trust that they have in him over at Copenhagen as well. There was a couple of interesting bits. Kairat actually, again, gave a good account of themselves. They hit the crossbar from Jurkin Tapalov. Brilliant strike from outside the area, scorched back off the crossbar. But they felt like they were punished for it. They got a really soft penalty, Copenhagen, and Jordan Larson, son of Henrik, you have to say that. It's kind of part of the imperative. It's like saying Dan Burn from Blythe. He scored from the penalty spot. That made it 2-0. And Robert Silva had a shot deflected in to make it 3-0 with about 15 minutes left. And you're thinking, done, dusted. Parken is bouncing at this point. You're expecting Copenhagen to kind of see this one out, keep the clean sheet, and because they haven't been good at keeping clean sheets in recent weeks. But they, again, decided they were going to just do really silly things and get punished for it as well. Dastan Satpayev, who Chelsea have signed for next summer. You'll be shocked to know they've signed a teenager who is really exciting. And there's a lot of Sergio Aguero comparisons going on. But he basically tackled the goalkeeper who spent way too long trying to clear the ball and tapped home after that. That made it 3-1 with 10 minutes or so left. And then in the 90th minute, Ozaz Bajbek, with a really good goal, like 3 or 4 excellent passes, takes it in his stride and fires it home. They had an opportunity really late on to make this one 3-3. They launched his free kick into the box, but Katarski making up for his earlier mistake by claiming it, hitting the deck and listening to the full-time whistle. So Copenhagen hang on for a 3-2 win. Kairat, really bold, really brave, I thought. And seeing Satpayev score, I'm sure will make some Chelsea fans out there very excited about another teenage sensation that they have on their hands coming into the club at some point in the next couple of years. But Copenhagen just about hanging on. And I'd say on the balance of the game, just about deserving it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So as the Champions League looks right now, it's actually really interesting what's happened at the top in the first 5 places. Arsenal first, PSG second, Bayern Munich third, Inter Milan fourth, and Real Madrid fifth. That means that we've got a team from England, France, Germany, Italy, Spain, all in the top 5.
Nice.
That's cool.
That is cool. I like that very much. And you know what? Little bit of bite back for Thierry Henry, who said, this is the Premier League era in the Champions League. It doesn't look like that in the table anymore, pal.
It doesn't. No, Chelsea in 7th, Man City in 9th, Liverpool in 13th, Tottenham in 16th. There you go.
Well, they're still all on for qualification, so I suppose
all still on. Yeah.
I suppose there's that. Yeah, exactly right. And with that, I think it's probably time for us to call it a day here on Ranks FC. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Champions League Takeaway. All that's left for me to do is say thank you very much to Mr. Dean Jones.
Cheers, mate.
I've been Jack Collins, and this has been your second episode of Champions League Takeaway on Ranks FC this week. Thank you so much for listening as ever. The Truth will be live on Friday morning, where Dougie and Sam are going to be talking about some potential breakout superstar midfielders. Who's going to be the next superstar midfielder? We had a great discussion about that, so make sure you're locked in on Friday morning. From the two of us, thank you so much for sticking with us this week. Thank you so much for tuning in to Champions League Takeaway, and we'll see you all very, very soon. Take it easy, Ranks. Peace.